Going live in 3, 2, 1, and hey everyone, I'm live. Thanks for checking out another one of my videos. In this video, I want to go over the features of my personal website. I think I've titled this the best personal website. I'll let you be the judge of that, but hopefully some of the features are interesting to you, so I guess we'll see. I've been working on the app that I call this website since the start of 2021. And it's open source. It's on GitHub. It's got the name, I call it Daedalus OS, kind of like a play on words of Daedalus, like from Greek mythology, I think. One of the mythologies, anyways. So yeah, I want to kind of get into showing the website and just kind of show the features, and there's a lot of them. So if you like this video and or you like what I'm doing, please consider throwing me a like on this video. And if you want to support me even more, then feel free to subscribe. That's always cool as well. And yeah, let's just kind of jump into the browser now and check out the source code here of this Daedalus OS on GitHub. It's gotten somewhat popular, 5.4 thousand stars, not quite 5.5 yet, getting ahead of myself there. But as you can see here, the website itself is just dustinbrett.com, and let's click into it and kind of boot up the OS and click it, and boom, it's very fast. I probably have it cached, but in general, it is reasonably fast. This is a fresh load. I recently customized some of the things. I did a video about, I don't know, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, sometime in the past, where I did show some of the features, but I've added so many things since then that I kind of wanted to get into showing it again. And I've got a big list, and so yeah, let's just kind of go over some of them. So one of the first key things is that it's got a persistent file system. So if I were to right click on the menu here, it's also got context menus, and let's say make something called just a typical document like that, anything, and I reload, you can, oh wait, what happened there? Oh, that's funny. Typically it works, but I think at the moment it's probably had an issue with something very arbitrary. Let's try this out here. Let's say hello and save it, and then we do a refresh here, and oh, what's happening? Let's open up the DevTools. Oh, right, because I'm in the canary build of Chrome. Okay, let's not be in the canary build of Chrome because that's a silly build version to be in. I'm going to open up a different browser and we're going to share that one because that will work about 200 times better, but I never actually tried the simple feature of just sharing it. Let me just quickly jump to the other one right here. Here it is. Simple as that. Let me resize it to be a little bit bigger. And then let me show that example here just to start things off. So you make it and then you refresh. Hey, look, it's still there. Okay, there we go. That's a little bit better. Yeah, so one little thing about being in the canary build, which I was trying to do for the stream here, is that there's another system that I also have. When it can't do a persistent file system, it can do an in-memory file system. And that's what we were seeing there. I did an impromptu demonstration of that. I actually wasn't going to demo the in-memory. I was just going to mention it. But here we go. Here we're in the one that persists. And as you can see, the file has persists. We can open it. We can type in it. We can do Control-S to save. We can refresh. And then if we open it, it has the data there as well. That's a lot better than before. That's a funny one, but it was quick to fix, which was kind of cool. That was completely switching browsers. Now I'm back on just the Chrome build, not the Canary build. The Canary is like the beta build of Chrome, and I guess it must be in in-memory mode at the moment, but that's okay. So as you can see, we got persistent and in-memory file system. So whatever environment you're in, it can kind of work. But if it's a memory file system, then you kind of have to do something else. And that's where another cool option I have is if you right click here, you can do map directory. And it doesn't show on the stream here, but it's actually prompting me to pick a directory locally on my computer. So even if you have an in-memory file system, you could pick a local directory and use that. And that, of course, would be writable. So in my example here, I have a folder called local. I'll just share that and press view files. And there we go. You see it'll map to the desktop right there. And it has the name local with like a little mapped icon. And here's some of the little sample files that I had that I was going to show. And I was going to download them in the other browser. But now that browser kind of failed me, I'll just go right to the samples. These are all free stock to use things. And they'll kind of fall into some of my other examples here as we get into it. One of the other pieces it can do here is it can read ISO format files. So you can see here, this is a .iso file, but I can actually double click it and it'll open it in the file explorer. And we can actually look at the contents of that ISO. And you can do other things with them as well, such as in the example of an ISO, you can right click it and go open with, and there's different options. A lot of them have open with options actually. Even things like, let's say this here is a movie, you could open it in the text editor and just see what the source code of the movie looks like. But in the example here of the ISO, we can open it in an x86 emulator that we have. And in this case, it's just the memtest ISO disk for people that happen to work in IT. I used to back in the day. And this is just like a .iso file that you could burn onto a CD and boot on a computer without an operating system. And here you can see that it can boot those kind of things. Some more advanced examples that I have for it here would be, I also have a Linux, and I have another one. If you go to the start menu, I'm jumping ahead, I guess, but this is going to be jumping all over the place. You're just going to have to be like, whoa, I'm just going to blow your mind all over the place, perhaps, or perhaps not. I'm okay to underwhelm as well, but if I do underwhelm, feel free to throw a comment in there so I can keep improving the experience. So we got a start menu. Within there, I have some other menus here, one of them being disk image. And just to jump back to the emulator, the x86 ISO emulation, I also have the ability to boot Linux. And one cool thing with this x86 emulation is you can link into the file system. So you see here at the bottom it says that we can look at the mount directory, and within there you can see that these files actually match the same files that are in this one here. So I could do like type the credits, or wait, is it type or is it cat? I think it's cat credits here. There we go, and that's actually the file pasted, and it's the same if I were to just open it here. I could do open with. Let me move it over here. I could right-click Open With in Monaco. That's the text editor that I have, where you can see this is my native text IDE type editor. It's not quite an IDE, but it's an advanced text editor, I would say. Or because it's a Markdown file, I could just double-click it, and the default behavior is that it opens in my Markdown viewer called Marked, which itself is kind of a cool little viewer that can open Markdown documents. Other tools it can open in, I could also open it in Vim, and this is actually running pretty legit Vim. It's not perfect in a lot of cases, and I'm gonna have to throw credit where credit's due. And we're open. We have the credit file right here, so we're kind of talking about credits as it is. But my app is built on a lot of really cool libraries that do a lot of the apps and a lot of the specific stuff. So I consider myself the person gluing it all together in a lot of ways and kind of polishing it so that it doesn't look like it's glue in a lot of cases. That's my field of expertise, I would say, in the front end. Or just in general, actually, with programming. That's something I enjoy. So that's the case with Vim here as well. This is running in a complicated way, but it's somewhat like Vim. I mean, I actually don't know much about Vim, so I won't attempt to play with it too much. But feel free to try it yourself, and you're gonna run into some bumps with some of these libraries. So just you'll have to understand that. I guess I should have mentioned this. I kind of missed it for a moment. But this whole website is it's about showcasing my blog posts, showcasing my pictures, my videos, and hopefully it does that most of the time reliably. That's kind of the key stuff. And then because I kind of went over the edge, and the idea was that you have the experience that you're almost like remote desktoping into my computer. So you go to my website and it's almost like, oh, what happened? Did he like do some kind of remote session? This looks like a Windows 10 machine. I hope is the experience you get, because I use a Windows 10 machine, and I basically just emulated that. Like when I wanted to copy this start menu, I would just open up my start menu and go pixel by pixel, feature by feature, every little piece that I could do. And that's essentially what I've done here, just so that we can recreate that experience of being able to have like my blog posts look like files, basically. So in this case, I've created my own format called WHTML, which is basically just an HTML format. It's based on the thing that the tiny MC WYSIWYG editor spits out. You know, these WYSIWYG editors, what you see is what you get. And essentially, because that's how my blog started, was these WordPress posts that I would do with the WYSIWYG editor. So I essentially I integrated that app into this as its own standalone app. So not only can you see my blog posts kind of in the way that I edited them, but also you can click into design mode and you could edit them yourself if you want. You could go, you know, the picture should be over here like that, and this text should be bold, and then you could just save that. And then if you close that, you refresh the whole page, you come back to whatever blog post that was, this one here, and there you go, it's all been moved. And it even, as you can see, I've got, this is jumping into another thing, is I've also got dynamic thumbnails for many of the icons, to the point where you can see here that it actually recreated the thumbnail. So if I were to go into edit mode here and delete the image, and then save that, click this, I think it might do it on refresh, or I might have to reload the whole page. There you go. So it actually recreates the entire icon. And you can see here that now it represents that the blog post has no image. But a way that I can reset the file system, essentially, actually, before I talk about resetting it, you see here we still have that map drive after I did a reload. It still remembers that there's a map drive, but it has to re-ask for permissions to, once again, look at your local computer. So now I could go view files again, and there we go. Now I have those files again. And it's, again, talking about the dynamic thumbnails. This is a video, and it actually looks at the video and actually makes a little animation, similar to how you can do it in Windows, similar to that as well. This one here is actually an MP3, and it's getting the cover art directly from the inside of the MP3. This here is just a picture, but again, it's got a dynamic thumbnail for the pictures, and things you can do with the picture. You can do a lot of stuff. You can open it in the picture viewer here, as you see. It's a somewhat large picture. You can zoom in on it. You can also zoom in with the mouse. It's got drag and drop, that kind of thing. Full screen, I won't demonstrate that, but we know that one. Things you can do with the context menu for that are kind of neat. Like, let's say right now we have this animated wallpaper, and we'll get into some of the other cool backgrounds that I have, but also you can pick an image, set as background, and do the different features: the fill, the fit, the stretch, the tile. Oh, that one looks bad. And center. And yeah, I've tried to emulate those. Fill looks kind of cool here in this case, so we could just use that as the wallpaper for a little bit. It's probably a little more performant because that previous wallpaper actually is doing some 3D animations and can kind of slow the computer down a bit. Another image that I've actually got embedded as a feature, if you right click on the desktop in backgrounds, there's this thing called APOD, which is actually astronomy photo of the day. And it's a public API. It doesn't require any API key or anything. So if you just click that, it'll get the latest APOD image and put that as your wallpaper, if that happens to be what you want. And this will change daily too. If you just leave it like this, you come back to my website tomorrow, it'll be whatever tomorrow's APOD image is. Other wallpapers I have, the other ones I have are animated. So the one we were looking at before was Vanta Waves. This has like a little rainbow color changing along with a wave pattern and 3D effect kind of. Some of the other another cool one I have here is Coastal Landscape. This is my attempt to kind of try to emulate the Windows wallpaper where it's got the Windows XP wallpaper where it was like the grass and that. I mean, first off, I didn't make any of this. So when I say it's my attempt to emulate it, it's like my attempt to find something that looked similar and then integrate it into my site. So again, credit where credit's due. It's somewhere in my credits here who made this. Pretty much everything that I have in here, I hope is credited. And if it's not, I hope someone tells me. But it's all essentially allowed to be used in this way. And I've tried to use it for a very fun way. I'm not trying to make any money off my website. Another one we got here is this Hexelis. I think this is made by the same guy that did like the Deep Dream stuff, the Google Deep Dream. So it's got kind of that vibe sometimes. Some of the textures look a little like just weird, but it's another cool one that I always thought was pretty fun. Going back to the APOD one though, that one's pretty chill for now. Let's just jump to some of the other features I've got here. So we've talked about the mounted handles. Right, so remember we changed this file here. What we can do is we can open up the start menu and just click on the power button. And if we do that, it'll reset everything, including the blog post. So now if we go back, you'll see that the blog post is in its original state. And if you don't go into design mode, then when you actually click on the pictures, such as this new blog post here, you can click on them and you can see like the pictures of my beautiful daughters or whatever other my posts are, such as the news where I started working at Microsoft, which I'm pretty proud about. And this is my most recent blog post. This is my dog, another part of my blog post, but just all sorts of different various things I have in my blog posts. And yeah, like I said, that resets. So another cool feature, this is something I added recently, and this is something I haven't seen too many people do, is I've added an IPFS gateway to the file system to allow loading IPFS files. So the only way that right now I have two ways to do that. You can do that through the terminal. And to do that, you can, again, open the start menu, and there's terminal here. There's a few ways to get to the terminal. Another way you could do it is I also have some keyboard bindings, such as Shift F10 can open up the terminal. So that's another way you can get to that. And from here, you can type pretty much any command. Another key binding I have, if I can remember it, I think is Control-Shift-R. There we go. That opens the run dialog. And another cool feature I've added too is that if you do go into full screen, it'll actually initiate, if your browser supports it, a keyboard lock. And then I can actually grab other keys, and then I actually do the Windows key. So then when you press Windows key, it'll actually open my start menu, or if you press Windows key R, it'll open up the run dialog. But I can't demonstrate this here with the way my streaming setup is. So when you aren't in full screen, it's just Control-Shift-R, because I can't grab the Windows key when I don't have the keyboard lock, which you can only get when you're in full screen mode. Anyways, we open up the run dialog here, and so an example I had was, let's say the Photos app. I type Photos. So if I just type Photos, it opens up a Photos app with nothing. But if I open up again there, it has a little history here, and I press space, and now I can type an IPFS URL as I've decided to interpret them. And an example one here, let me just open up the page where they kind of discuss these URLs and their future hope for them. Address IPFS on the web. So this is the IPFS kind of docs. IPFS is kind of like a Web 3.0, so I'm trying to jump on that bandwagon a little bit. So if we look at their URL here, they have this going through their gateway, but the way that they want the protocol to be, they mention it somewhere here. They have an example URL that I've decided to emulate, which is this style here, this IPFS as the protocol. And here's an example of one of them here. Let's do this one first. It's the Vincent van Gogh one. So that's an HTML document. Let's open that in Monaco Editor, actually. So we'll say Monaco Editor space, and then that protocol that they have, where it's this IPFS semicolon // You press OK, and there we go. It opens up in Monaco. It grabbed a new file from the IPFS Web 3.0 distributed file systems and loaded it here, and then it actually saves it to the desktop. And in the first example here, it's like a funny, I don't think it's it's a funny-ish photo. There's another photo that's funnier that I can't find right now, but let's open this one. Photos, let me spell photos correctly. Now I copied that not correctly. Let's fix the protocol here. Add a semicolon and one more // There we go. And now I open it in photos, and there we go. It grabs another one from the distributed Web 3.0. You are a ghost driving a meat-covered skeleton made from stardust, riding a rock floating through space. Fear nothing. Okay, so that's their example URL. That's comforting, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, you can zoom in on it and that kind of cool stuff. Actually, talking about other interesting things we can do with it now that we have it open. So we have it open here. We have an image here. We have my file explorer. We have the text here. One thing I can do, if we talk about the taskbar here, is I've added, if you hover over the entries, it'll actually give you previews as well. So let's say here that we have the text covered. We can't see what the text is here. I could hover over this text here, and in a very bad example, that one is not showing. Oh, there we go. Just a little slow. So the speed of that is something I'm kind of working on. Not ideally performant, especially with the Monaco editor. But as you can see, it did a little preview. Completely useless, that one. Let's use the picture as another example. So the picture is completely covered in this case. You don't know what's going on there. But if I hover over where the picture is, we can see the little picture here. And maybe I could read that. Let me get closer on that. Yeah, so that little preview I could even read if you wanted to. And you can hover over all these to see the different ones. Like I said, the Monaco one's slow. The terminal one is also pretty slow. This one's really fast. That one's really fast. So that's my ideal example that I give. And if I have like interesting folders open, it'll work good. But as you see here, it even did the icons that are these here. And it's the same thing. So like as an example, let me just delete a couple here. I'll delete these 3 from the context menu, and now when we hover, you see now there's only those icons, so it's completely dynamic. And there's also, you can also close them from here, so I can press close. This gets into the windows too if we want to jump around. This is a window. You can drag it, you can drop it. I've also gotten rid of the boundaries. I used to have boundaries here where the windows could not go beyond. Now I allow it, but if it goes too far, if you see, if I let go right now, it comes back. And there's actually there's a limit, so you can go to some degree. Yeah, you see here it kind of doesn't allow past a little degree, and that was my solution to allow people to move the windows a little bit. And I feel like that added a lot of flexibility, and it kind of made the thing a bit more comfortable. So shout out to whoever suggested that, because somebody suggested that to me to do that. They animate the windows. You see if I go full screen and such. They also, if you minimize, they will animate down to wherever they're located in the taskbar. These taskbars act the same as Windows 10, where if you click them, they give focus. You click again, they minimize. You double click the title bar to maximize the windows. What else about these? Yeah, resizing as well. You can resize them to your heart's content. Most of them. Some of them have limitations based on the apps themselves. A lot of the apps use this canvas element where it's essentially a picture that I have a limited amount of control over how it's going to draw it, so I don't allow resizing to the same way. Anyways, I think we've talked most about the file system. We've talked a little bit about the file manager, but let's jump a bit more into it. We'll jump to our APOD picture for the heck of it. So one thing with the file manager, we can make folders as you'd expect. You can go into the folder and make a file within there. You can do the rename features. You can call it Hello World, let's say. What we could do is let's make an HTML document. And then in there, we'll open it in Monaco first, and we'll just make a little H1 that says hello. And I'll close my H1 because it would be rude not to. There we go. We'll save that. We can also save it by clicking the little save icon, which you probably couldn't see there. It's right down here. Click save. And another icon that I have here with this Monaco editor, let's say we were to open up the session. This is constantly being auto-generated, so it's not pretty looking. But this button here is I have Prettier built into Monaco, so quite a few of the formats you can just click this and it'll clean it up for you right away. It makes it easier to read. Let's say the sitemap here, also completely illegible. Prettier, I can just kind of come in there and boom. Now you got a little bit more legible sitemap. Oh, it doesn't do a good job with XML, to be honest. And this HTML is simplistic. But going back to the HTML that we just created, now we created that, so we double click it and it can open it right in our little internal browser that we have. And this browser actually is kind of cool as well because it's the same kind of idea with the IPFS. I've added that IPFS protocol to it. So if we, oh, 1 second here. Oh, darn it. We go back to the page here. Back to the browser. We open it up here. So if we can actually go to IPFS URLs, and if I click this one here, you'll see it. That's another IPFS URL where it actually uses Cloudflare's gateway. So it's not it's not like it's using a special protocol. It's just kind of in the background adding a little bit to that URL to make it go through Cloudflare. But it's a cool way where you can access stuff, and this works through my browser with without CORS issues. CORS is like a type of limitation where I can't go to a lot of websites basically through this browser because it's basically just an iframe. But there are some websites I can do. The IPFS stuff I can do. I've added some like icon shortcuts here of other websites that work, like the Minecraft website. So you could play like a little Minecraft through the browser here. Diablo. You can also do a little bit of Inception, and you can open up another version of my browser. And in there, you could open up another browser, and you could, I think, do it again. I think you have to change the URL slightly. If I just go like hi equals hi. There we go. Yeah. There's some limitation in Chrome where you can't open the same exact URL multiple times in the iframe, but if you just modify it in some irrelevant way, you could just keep doing this to some interesting degree. I'm not really sure how far you could go with it. Let's just refresh and get rid of some of that, though. Clear this as well. What are some other things we can do? So this is another feature I'm pretty proud of. It's still, I've noticed the occasional bug that I'm still working on, but a feature I'm pretty proud of here is drag and drop. So there's multiple selection that I'm pretty happy about. And if you see here, let's say I pick these two things, and another cool thing is when I drag, oh, it doesn't actually show on the stream, but I create drag images. So as it's dragging, you can actually see the icons, which is something that I actually had to do dynamically. It's not trivial, and it's not built into the browser. Anyways, I've got them, I'm dragging them, and now I can put them somewhere, and there we go. Before, I couldn't do that for the longest time, to be honest. And now they can be represented on the grid, and I can move these icons all around, and I could refresh, and it remembers their position. And if I want to not have them in that position, I could right click and I could just say sort them again by name, let's say, or by size, which appears to be the same in this case because most of these are shortcuts. By item type, I think that does alphabetical as well. Although I don't know why that made a difference. That's interesting. And date modified, which I think most of those sorts work, but don't quote me on that. Okay, what are some other cool features we could kind of show here? We did the desktop rearrange, the sorting, archiving. Another thing you can do, let's say we pick multiple here. These just happen to be shortcuts. Actually, let's not pick shortcuts then. Let's pick a few of my blog posts here. Let's say you like my blog posts so much, you want to take these 4 and you want to download them. There's a few ways you could do it. You could just right click and press download actually, and it'll make a zip. It made this download.zip. Or what you could do is you could right click these 4 or select them however you happen to do it. And you could add them to an archive yourself. So then now you've made an archive called blog posts. And then what you could do is you could take it and you could actually drag it over to here if you wanted to. So I actually support complete drag and drop on the internal file system and external as well. So let's say in the external world, if I go outside of the browser and I grab another picture of my dog, let's say, from my desktop, my real desktop, I can drag it and drop it on, and it'll actually drop where I put it right there. It drops even to the correct desktop position. And the picture's right there. It created the dynamic thumbnail. And it's just already created and it's done. So that's another cool feature, is that ability to do drag and drop and create the archives. And another thing too is once you've created these archives, is internally we can also extract them if we want. We could open it. We have the ability to open zip files and see inside them, or we could right click it and press extract, and it'll actually extract the files again. So now we've got them in 2 places kind of. So that's one other piece we can do. And then another aspect, if you're looking for a certain file, let's say this interesting times one, is I also have search built into the file manager. So you can search in here, oh, wow, what happened there? Okay, cool. Well, I'm still working on some of the bugs. Honestly, there aren't too many, but the occasional one. I guess search is having an issue right now. One cool thing to note actually is that I've added a React error boundary so that if whatever's happening, I'm going to try it again in a second here and see if there's some kind of search issue going on, it's actually able to isolate it to the file manager because of the way the error boundaries work, and then I could perhaps close the folder. So let's crash it again, I guess, in the test. Oh, now it just worked. Okay. Well, I love it when it doesn't, when you can't recreate the error. Hopefully I'll be able to recreate that because it shouldn't happen. Could have been cache, I suppose, but let's just move on and show the search then. So here's if search had worked, and I type interesting. Now it's actually showing it. So here's interesting times, and I can just click it from the search, and it'll also open up the same one that's here. And this is a shortcut as well to it, because it's located in the blog post folder here, and you can right click and say create shortcut and have a shortcut here, and I can put one there. And it's the same as this, and you can actually open up the shortcuts in Monaco and see their content. It's a .url format, kind of an INI format, but the basic concept is just the base URL is what the app is, and then the URL is where it's located. As you can see here that it's located there. And then once you have this URL, you can actually do quite a bit with it. I also have the ability within the app URL structure, so you can add question mark, and then you could say URL equals, and paste in a URL, and then it'll actually go right to that when you open up the page. Or with the URL, another thing we could do is open up that run dialog and just paste it in here, and it'll open as well. Or we can open it in other programs, such as Monaco Editor, and we can see it in there. We also can open it through the terminal, although we have to put it in quotes because the blog posts has a space in it. So I've decided to make the terminal act that way. There we go. It'll open up in the terminal as well. And yeah, so that's some examples of ways you can use the URLs and the way you can do the searching. That gets us through the file manager and the file system. We've talked about the windows. Let's talk more about the taskbar. So one cool thing I'm pretty proud about is the clock. I've actually done a few videos about this clock. There's a lot to it. And one of the cool things, it has NTP time sync, which is essentially these NTP time servers that are synced to atomic clocks. So if you wanted to, you could right click here and press server time, and it'll actually sync to an NTP server. Now, I actually sync my local machine to an NTP server as well. So when I just did that switch, you didn't really notice too much of a change, if any. But for somebody who doesn't sync their clock, you might actually notice some kind of change there. And this change persists as well. So if I refresh, you can see here I'm still on server time. I'll switch back to local time. It's kind of covered by my video there, but it just says local time, server time. That's the only two options. Other than that, it's a nice clock. It actually runs in a web worker, and it's using an off-screen canvas. So if the website freezes, the wallpaper and the clock will keep going. I don't know what that gets you, but it's a feature, I suppose. Getting on to some of the other features, let's talk about the start menu a little bit more. So I've added the spotlight effect. As you see, when I hover over the mouse, it kind of has this a spotlight effect. I don't know what else to call it. That's what I decided to call it. I've also got this hover for where the taskbar will appear when you want it to. And I've got a lot of apps here that we can kind of go through. We've already gone through some of them. The browser. Let's keep talking about the start menu for 1 second, though. There's a sidebar as well, I should mention. If you hover over the left here, it'll open up the sidebar. You can kind of click it to get rid of it, or click it again to open it in the empty space. It also has some shortcuts to some stuff that I thought was kind of useful to have shortcuts for. A documents folder. So this will just jump you right to the documents folder, which will get into some of the stuff I have in here. Other folders I have are the videos folder. And I think I have the pictures as well as here. So these are some of the main things. Like I said, again, my personal website, I wanted to highlight these things. So when you open the start menu, these are the kind of shortcuts that are there. But I also have a shortcut to the blog post directly on my desktop. And I also have the Dustin folder, which kind of is the location of a lot of these things. Like there's the documents here. There's the videos. And there's also, as you can see, dynamic icons on these folders. This is another thing that can be controlled. Some of the folders will have icons, some of them don't. And as you can see here, it actually will generate icons for a folder if it has pictures in it. So let's say if I were to make a folder here that's empty, and then I were to take one of those, let's take that sky picture again. I'll drag my sky picture in here, put it in there. There we go. And now if I were to refresh the page, there we go. Now you can see that the folder actually shows that there's a sky picture in there of my dog. So that's another little dynamic icon picture feature. We discussed the sidebar, we discussed the clock and peak features as well. Let's move on to some of the specific apps then. We've already talked about the photo app too. Let's go top to bottom then here. So I won't go into specifics with the disk images and stuff, as I've already showed you Linux. It's an x86 emulator, so you could do all sorts of different things, such as memtest was another example we did. I've got a lot of emulators. So another cool one I have is called Boxed Wine. This essentially lets me run Windows executables. One such executable I have is in the Documents folder under Games. It's called ski32.exe. It's also another dynamic icon feature I have where I actually can extract icons directly from executables. And I've also built in 7-zip into the program, so I can actually extract executables. So I can actually right-click the exe file and press extract, and 7-zip will actually extract the contents of the executable, what it can, which is basically just some resource file stuff, pictures and that kind of thing, which is kind of fun. And if we were to just open up the exe, double-click it, it'll open in Boxed Wine. You'll see Boxed Wine kind of go through its boot up procedure. And hopefully, there we go. We're in Ski32, and then it's actually controlled by my mouse. You see if I stop it here, it doesn't go. I can go to the left here. I can run into something possibly. If I try to lose, I'll probably just do amazing. Oh, no, never mind. I lost. So, yeah, it's pretty easy to lose actually there. Next example I had in the start menus is the emulator specifically. This one's really cool, emulator.js. I added this recently. Previously, months ago when I did a video, I had a few console emulators. I had NES and SNES emulators, and I had a few homebrew ROMs to demonstrate that. Now, with this emulator.js, I have a lot. Atari, Game Boy, Game Gear, Sega Genesis, N64, NES, SNES, tons of other random ones. Jaguar, what's one called? Dream something or other. Not Dreamcast. Like some other one that's like I'd never heard of before. Anyways, if we go, I have some homebrew games. Going back to games folder here, ROMs. So here's some examples here. So this Alter Ego one, I think I had this one before. This is the NES one. As you can see, it can play NES. Also, another cool thing with this emulator is it works way better in mobile. It actually, if you full screen it, the emulator piece goes to the top, and the bottom piece actually has controls that work kind of a little bit. So all these work. What's this Anjuna one? This is Game Boy Advance. This is a GBA game. All of these are homebrew games. They're all completely like free, made by people. Classic Kong. This is again the homebrew that I had before of this SNES, but the new ones. So this is Atari 2600, Halo 2600 for the Atari 2600, Mega Qbert for the Sega Genesis. I got School Rush for Nintendo DS. But in theory, you could get any ROM. Just drag it on here and play it, basically, for any of those systems I mentioned, plus a lot more that I probably didn't mention. More, let's do more. So what else we got for emulators? Have we talked about the DOS emulator? I don't even think we have. So we have a DOS emulator. If you see here, we got Doom. I have to open Doom every single time. So this is running on DOS, but this is a full DOS emulator. And that means it could run anything DOS. You could do QBasic programming in here if you wanted, or like I'm doing here, you could play full Doom. I could maximize it and just fully on play. You know, Doom. What other ones do I have, though? I have a few others here. If we go to the DOS bundles, I've actually added a couple of the classics here. For my classics. Biomenace, Blakestone, Duke Nukem 3D, Doom we just did, Jazz, Jackrabbit, and Commander Keen 4. So let's say for Duke Nukem 3D, that's another fun one. That's kind of a hefty one, actually. I think this one's like a little more graphics intensive compared to like a Commander Keen or something like that. All of these are the shareware versions. Back in the day when shareware was cool, when it was cool to share. It's not really cool to share anymore, except for what I'm doing right now, I guess. I would consider that sharing, I suppose. So I guess I'm sharing this experience again. If it gets you to download Duke Nukem or whatever, that'd be cool. So yeah, and since I think my last stream, they've actually fixed some of the issues where it couldn't play multiple things. So you could play multiple things, actually. Like I could play Doom over here and this other game at the same time. Before it used to do one keyboard or the other, but I could play both. While I'm falling there, I play this one. So that's kind of fun. And another cool feature too is save states. That's another thing I've added. So if you go into the Dustin folder here, I actually have a dynamically created folder called snapshots, where every emulator I run, it creates snapshots of the state, and you can just jump back into it. And I've also got it to create dynamic screenshots for these as well. So you can see that for all the emulators I ran, including the DOS games, it created these little save states. And they all load in various different ways. In the case of the DOS one, it always reloads, but it's kind of got like a little storage thing, so you can kind of load state within Doom. But a lot of the other emulators, it actually just loads right into where it was before, including the x86 emulator, which is another cool one as well. What other fun ones do I have? So another cool emulator I have is Ruffle, which is Flash. If people remember Flash, that was something I used to do, Adobe Flash. I don't have any Flash demos, unfortunately. Like, I have demos. I don't have my own demos, is what I should say. I have a few demos. I'll show you one right here. I'll show you one of my favorites, which is the badger mush. I always do mushroom at the too soon. But this is a classic for people that are probably 30 years old, I guess. I'm 36, going on 37, so... some of the other cool Flash ones that I found out that people were making is they were making essentially this kind of idea, like a Windows in a box, pretend Windows. One of the cooler ones that I decided to put on my site is this Windows RG build. So it's like Windows and Windows and Windows. It's like some kind of crazy level of inception. I haven't really played with this much actually, but it's somebody took a long time to make this funny, silly version of Windows, I guess. And there's a million of them. That's just Flash emulators for you though. That's Ruffle. And then again, the x86 one, I've discussed that one. I guess I could quickly show you this Calibri one so I can show you a GUI, a graphical user interface x86 emulation. Because the previous one I showed memtest and Linux, those are basically just text. This one here is a full-on graphical one. And this actually has network support as well. So I don't, every time I show this, I get like spotty results because it's using this proxy that is not my proxy. But I've been using it. If it stops working, that's okay. If people tell me to stop using it, that's okay too. But we could try it again here. Let's try with the IRC. That's always the one I try. And almost never it works. Let's see. I tried to connect here. Doesn't seem like it's going to work. But as an example of the save state, I'm going to close it right now. And if we go to snapshots, we can see it saved it. There's a picture of Calibri. And now if I open up Calibri again, it'll just jump right back into it. Boom. So it's still presumably trying to connect. And it didn't connect, especially with me knocking out the network halfway through. But to show an example of the network working, actually, the Linux one has an example of that. You have to turn on the network stack. It actually tells you to do that. So you have to type udhcpc, and that'll boot up the network stack. And then at that point, you can like ping stuff, I guess. I could ping, I don't know, facebook.com. Is that possible? Okay, that was a bad example. Let me just ping my own website. Does that work? What about pinging an IP? Okay, that works. So maybe there's some kind of DNS issue, but it can ping IPs. So there is the WebSocket connection proxy is working via the x86 emulator running Linux on my website, which is all through JavaScript essentially and WebAssembly. Which to say, oh, just WebAssembly, that can be almost anything nowadays. It's a huge chunk of my site is WebAssembly actually. What else? Talked about the wallpapers, talked about all the emulators, I would say now. Let's talk about some of the other features like converting. So if we open up the videos folder here, let's say my video here of my brain scan. I also have a video player. We'll get into that a bit too. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. I want to talk about converting. So here's the video playing, but if I close it here and I right-click the video player, the video file, sorry, there's some convert options. So I can actually convert to various options. Now, I don't want to demonstrate this because this, unfortunately, is the one of the rare occasions where it's actually a blocking operation and it kind of freezes the app a little bit. And it's kind of slow, unfortunately. It's a proof of concept. It's cool. It works if you're patient. But I wouldn't recommend it as a way to do it at this point. It's using FFmpeg through WebAssembly. And yeah, you can convert it to tons of formats, essentially, which is kind of cool. I mean, I think the audio ones are quick. So let's say I want to convert this to MP3. Again, it freezes, but you can't tell because my wallpaper is on a web worker, my clock's on a web worker. These GIFs don't appear to... Oh, actually, it didn't freeze. Interesting. If I'm hovering here and that's working, it's not frozen. But where's my audio? Didn't look like it converted, unfortunately, there. But most of the time that works, so that's one feature. And I also have that same feature for images, and we're going to try it for images. It's going to work for images. Let's go to one of my travel pictures. This is another thing I wanted to highlight is I actually done a lot of traveling. You can see it in the collage behind me. So this is like something I wanted to show. I haven't found a cool way to do a collage yet, or like make a pretend collage app, but that's something I want to do. Anyways, let's just pick a random photo to try this convert thing. There's a photo. So if I right click, and it also has convert, and let's say convert to a, what is it right now? It's a JPEG. Let's make it a PNG. This should go faster. This should work. There we go. It worked, and it was quick. So yeah, it's got a PNG here. It's 224 kilobytes. The JPEG was 33 kilobytes. I have a feature on my wall of post-its to add more configuration options, but the idea works. It can convert, it does video, it does audio. So in that way, it's kind of neat. And you can also, yeah, we've already set the backgrounds. Another cool thing I wanted to, as long as we're here, is when you right-click a picture, another app that I have, and I've also integrated into the context menu, is if you click Edit, it'll actually open up in like MS Paint, basically. And this is kudos to the JS Paint guy that did this, but it's like a full-on JS Paint experience, and it basically works. Just like you'd expect it to, basically, although that didn't work like I expected to. I'll move my head over here. So we save that. We close this here. And let me see if it updates the thumbnail. Yeah, there we go. So there's the dynamic thumbnail. The picture changed. And now it updated. And that was through that wacky MS Paint thing. So that was another fun app there. And then, yeah, on the video player, another piece I wanted to show. So that's an actual video file here. But it also supports YouTube. So that's what's on my desktop here. This is one of my previous videos, AI art generation. And if you double-click that, that also opens in the video player. And as you can see, and it'll just play like that. Now, it doesn't have the little preview at the bottom. If I hover over there, you see it'll show black on the window there for YouTube links, because those are actually happening through an iframe. But for something like my brain scan, that you can actually hover and it'll show the preview. Although it's got a bit of flicker. I'm working on the flicker. There's some kind of issue there. I think this one, the Bollywood one, doesn't have flicker, but I don't know. Anyways, it's something to play around with. There's always one or two kinks. Actually, there's more like 1,000 here. All those red post-its of kinks, plus like last year's that I took down. That kind of covers most of the converting. I can also convert spreadsheets, although I forgot to get an example spreadsheet. But just imagine me taking a CSV and turning it into an XLSX. That's something I could do. Or perhaps vice versa. I'm pretty sure I can do most of that. Let's move on to another app. Let's jump into my documents just so I can show you the PDF app. So I put my resume on here. I haven't updated it in a while, and I'm not looking for work. Happy at Microsoft. But I've been working on this PDF app, so I thought I was pretty proud of it. It's pretty simplistic, but it's not using the native PDF browser. So if you somehow are visiting my website on a browser that supported all the wacky features I have, but somehow didn't have a PDF viewer, or perhaps you've like blocked the native PDF viewer, you could use this one, because this is actually happening on the website. I have the download feature to download the PDF, that you can print it, and that works. This resume piece, it's actually reading directly from the inside of the PDF, the title part of it. So it kind of works a lot like the Chrome PDF viewer. I'm kind of proud of it. The one I had in my like old version of this that from years ago was like one of the weak points of my demo, and I feel like I've tried really hard to try to make this PDF viewer a bit better. But it's actually pretty hard to get a good PDF viewer. I was surprised how hard that is. We've gone through Monaco, we've gone through Vim, TinyMC, we've kind of gone through MS Paint. Some of the games I wanted to highlight as well, because some of these are ports. Separate from the emulators and stuff, I have this game section in the start menu, and some of these are actual JavaScript ones. Some are a little more responsive than others. This chess one's fun. I just wanted to have chess in here. It's very unresponsive in that I can't even resize it, but darn it, it works, you know? If you're in desktop, it's not great on mobile, this chess game. But if you're on desktop, it's chess, you know? I mean, I'm not so good at chess. I don't need the best chess game, but in the future, I will have a better chess engine, and I will have a better chess game one day. But kudos or credits to whoever did make that chess game that I integrated. It's nice, but it's not perfect. Classic Kong is an emulator. Commander Keen's an emulator. DX Ball. This is another one I remember from playing. Me and my mom used to play this all the time. Somebody ported this. This is just running in JavaScript. And this was a fun one to kind of get working, because I had to get the high score stuff working as well. And it saves that as well now too. So let's say you get a score here. I put myself as DNB. I don't know why I put that. And we come back another day to play DX Ball again. Oh, I'll open up the browser randomly though for no reason. We play DX Ball. And presumably, hopefully, it's going to remember that DNB's guy's score. And I'm going to do worse than him so that I will not be better than him. There we go. There's DNB. So I managed to integrate the scoring. That was unfortunately not easy. What are some other ports? Another port was Space Cadet. That's another cool one, where somebody actually kind of ported the Space Cadet game. So this is not running in a traditional emulator, one of my other emulators. And this works pretty good too. This is kind of how I remember it. So yeah, I won't play it too long because I'm pretty bad at it. And with audio on, I think it's a lot more laggy. But a lot of these are proof of concept. It's not like I didn't want you to come to my site to play Space Cadet. It's more like read my blog post, and then if you get bored of my post or something, you could do a million things. You know, if the interesting times post is not interesting to you, if my AI art generation is not interesting to you, just start playing Doom. Just start dragging in your own stuff and just like turn it into your own desktop if you want. On that note, what other apps? WebAmp. This is a cool one. Let's map that folder again that had that example MP3 that I wanted to play. Here it is here. We'll drag that MP3 on, and there we go. It starts playing in our WebAmp Winamp player. And we have a lot of cool features with this, such as like the skinning works. So this used to be my favorite skin, was the SpyAmp skin. Another cool thing is got milk drop. This is actually what's running behind me right here. Is this. I run this all day while I'm like working on my couch or whatever, just like as background stuff. Is I play the streaming audio, because I actually have streaming support as well with WebAmp. So if you go into Dustin here music, I actually have the Soma FM playlist, Groove Salad, that I used to listen to 20 years ago, and that's the one I usually play. I usually pop on Winamp, Groove Salad. I switch the skin, I open Milk Drop, and then I switch it to desktop mode, and there we go. Now, I'm not sure how much of a pixelated mess this is on the stream, but it's a really fun thing, and it actually works on the phone and stuff too. I'm going to switch off of it right now. Let's close that. Yeah. I switched off of it because I think for the stream, that much motion is probably going to be a little rough on the pixelization. But it's a cool feature. Try it out. Works on the phone, and it's WebAmp is an amazing player, an amazing port that they've done. And I've tried to add some features to it, like streaming, the ability to add URLs and stuff, and some little features here and there. But again, it's credit where credit's due. It's all the person who made that. What's the next piece I have here? Let me just refresh this. I think it's, oh, there we go. I think it has an issue with the APOD wallpaper sometimes. The best way to find bugs is to demo things to people. I've always found that's where you're gonna find a million things go wrong. But at the moment, actually, most things are going right. So I'm pretty happy about that, because this is not pre-canned, this is live, and this is just me trying to show all the features. Going back into the start menu, do we have any other games to show? I don't think we did. We talked about WebAmp. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the terminal, because there's a lot of cool things in here. I yelled help there to the terminal. The one cool thing that I got in here is Git itself. So let's say we go to the desktop. This is completely connected to the file system. So if you see here, we can see this is the same stuff that's mentioned in here, and we can even go into the remote file system. Oops, it didn't have permission at the time. I have to press view. Yes, there we go. And we can see that remote file system as well, and we can mess with it, and I've done that and broke things. But let's go back to the desktop here. Let's, as a test here, what I'll do too is I'll make a file, and then we'll do an ls directory again. You can see it there. I can delete it just to show you. There we go. So we have complete connection. So the first thing I could do is I could do git clone, and I can actually paste in an example git repository. Let's say HTML5 boilerplate. And I can actually clone Git repositories, fully client-side. Everything I'm doing client-side. I don't know if I mentioned that, but there's no servers except for that one WebSocket proxy server that is only for a demo that is completely irrelevant. There we go. It copied the Git repo. There's the Git repo there with all the files, and we could look at them with our various tools that we have, such as the Markdown viewers. Can look at their changelog. I could edit their stuff in Monaco, that kind of thing, all that various stuff. See whatever else they have there, if they have any pictures. I don't know what else they had in that repo. Yeah, they had some SVGs here that I could open at the SVG viewer. I also support icon files, cursor files, TIFF files that wouldn't normally be supported. I've added support for those. Those are things that work in here. Yeah, so that's Git. That's one cool example. Another cool example that the terminal has is WAPM support, which is like it's almost like NPM, like a package manager for WebAssembly files. Now, most of them don't work, but one works called cowsay. Actually, let me get some of this stuff out of the way here. Open up the terminal again. So WAPM cowsay hello. And I can make the cowsay WebAssembly library get downloaded from the package manager out in the internet, and loads on the page, and then passes in the parameter hello and pastes it there. So that's kind of cool. Most of them, there's very few proof of concepts that are worth showing there, but that's a cool one. Weather is another cool feature I have. It's got built-in weather. This is coming from a free weather API. Python. If you want to do a Python command, you want to do 1+1 in Python. Oops, I did 1 plus I didn't do 1+1, and it gave me a Python error. So that's proof that Python was there. Let me fix it to 1+1, and there we go. We got 2, or whatever it happens to be. That's Python. So I could do pyver and see the version. It's 3.10.2. So we got Python in there. We also have like basic stuff that you'd expect from the terminal. Like if you run help here, you can see all the stuff. That almost everything I could think to add, including a lot of the features like the converting and stuff. It's all in here too, like image magic, FFmpeg, the ability to do search, things like looking how much uptime you have, what time it is, the date. I don't know why you need some of these things, but I've kind of added them all in there just in case. Sheep, that's another feature I wanted to mention. If you type sheep, it will make a sheep appear. That was another fun little, it's almost like an Easter egg, but it's something that came with Windows back in the day. Actually, if you just load the page normal and you go to the clock and you click the clock 7 times, it'll make a sheep appear. And if I just click it a bunch of times, you can, I think every 7th time you get a penguin, or every 7th, or there's like a 1 in 7 chance of a penguin appearing, and a 1 in 20 chance of a cat. It looks like somehow we've gotten the cat before we got the penguin. There we go. So yeah, if you just keep clicking it, you can get all sorts of these little guys, and they can interact with the screen too. Let's say I open up a window here and I pull a few of the sheep up here. They can be part of the window, which is kind of a fun thing. So these are just like fun random things if you happen to be reading my blog and it's like you're also like dealing with penguins in your way and you want to just, oh, see, I got the penguin stuck on my window there. He can be on this window here while I'm kind of reading the blog there. At the same time, I want to get rid of this picture. I'm just trying to read the blog, this guy's blog. I can edit this blog. He doesn't need pictures in his blog. All sorts of stuff. I don't know why you would want to do this with my blog, but you could. And you could full screen this, and most of the sheep stay above it, but that's okay. I don't have a way to kill the sheep other than to refresh the page, and then the sheep are gone. Did I mention the DevTools one? I wanted to get through every feature before I kind of finish this. So one that I may have skipped was the DevTools one. That's another kind of cool one where it's like an introspective one. If you right-click the desktop here, inspect, you think, oh, it's going to be like DevTools on Chrome. But no, I'm running this like library of like a DevTools where it actually shows introspectively the HTML. So this actually matches what's happening. So if I open something here, I think it doesn't refresh, but it'll show it there in the window, I think. This is the window here, I think. And this will represent this essentially. So you can kind of look at the inside the code of itself was another cool one. And man, I feel like we've almost gone through everything. We went through so many things. If that's not enough, well, please, if there's something you think I didn't add, please throw it in the comments. If you have any other ideas or comments in general, please throw them in the comments. If you like this video, you like the features, you like what I'm doing, throw me a like. If you want to support me, throw me a subscribe. Thanks for checking out these features with me. And yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next video.